Josiah Ellner. I'm a recent graduate from SAIC, got my MFA in painting and drawing there, and before that I was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I did my undergrad and lived for a couple of years working as a barista. And my work, I work mostly in oil painting, and I draw a lot of inspiration from the natural world, from my experiences being out in my environment and engaging with the environment, engaging with my memories, thinking about childhood. And my pronouns are he, him. Yeah, I think I didn't show when I mentioned that it was just this, I think painting can be such a intimidating medium because of its history, because it has such a long history, specifically oil painting. But it's also like one of the most approachable mediums. You just pick up a brush, go to your local whatever art store, grab some paints, and you just kind of like get your surface, and you just can do whatever you want. So I like that a lot about that kind of dichotomy. But for me, I think I definitely I lean more towards just using painting as an outlet for my imagination and for just like creativity and being able to really create a picture of what's going on in my head and putting that down. Yeah, so that was kind of what I was saying when I was introducing myself. A lot of it is from just like my everyday experience with my surroundings in the world, and recently I've been finding myself just pulling from anything and everything. So I pull a lot from childhood memories. I pull a lot from just like internet images that I come into contact with that I find alluring. So everything kind of begins in my sketchbook. So a lot of times I'll be out in the world and I'll see something or experience something, and a lot of time this experience, it kind of recalls a memory from childhood. So it's kind of an experience that happens in the present that recalls a memory from the past, and those moments kind of stick out to me. And so I'll take that kind of experience, and then I'll come home to the studio, and then I'll create like a couple sketches from that, and then from those drawings of that idea, then they become paintings. Yeah. For drawings, I kind of just have I have so many sketchbooks, and not all of them become paintings, but they're kind of like forever archived as like a potential painting. And if I ever am kind of, I guess, struggling to figure out like what I want to paint, sometimes I'll just like go through my archives of drawings, and those drawings in themselves, because those drawings are kind of a recollection of an experience or a moment, it'll kind of like re-inspire or reinvigorate an idea that I had to make a painting. But for the most part, I would say there isn't too much like editing that happens. It's just kind of like, that's it. And I'm gonna make a painting of that right now. Currently, I feel like growing up in China, in like such a large city, I've always been really obsessed with like nature, the idea of nature. So I grew up like watching
What city, by the way?
in Xi'an, China. So yeah, but I always just like watch like David Attenborough nature documentaries. I was like always like going to like parks and like, I don't know, just that was a really interesting thing for me as a child. But because it was so not present in my like just like everyday life, because Xi'an is a very, there's like more than 8 million people there. It's like a concrete jungle. It's very polluted, so like we had to wear masks like during the winter because it's so polluted there. And so like a lot of times like the sky was always gray. So it's just like I feel like when I was a child I really like yearned to kind of be somewhere greener and be somewhere more like natural. So thinking about my work now, I'm kind of, I think my childhood has definitely affected how I'm like still thinking about that yearning and the desire to like be somewhere greener. So I did do a 2-person show with Latitude Gallery in October.
In New York.
Yeah. And it's kind of when there was a short period of time in grad school where I was working with a lot of blues and purples. And it really, those couple of pieces that I made in grad school, I got some good feedback on, and I was really I felt like it was really connecting with my ideas of thinking about the natural world, but then also connecting the natural world to like spirituality and like a spiritual experience. And so for my show at Latitude Gallery, I kind of like wanted to dive back into that. And so for that 2-person show, I also was, doing a lot of blue kind of paintings. And, the color blue has always been very dear to me. I've always loved the color blue, and, it's the color of the sky, it's the color of water.
It's my favorite color, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like, I remember reading somewhere online where it's like, the most favorite color, like, that people love. So, I think, and then also art history is like not my strong suit, but in my undergrad, when we were learning about certain art movements, like the Bridge or the Blue Rider, they said that blue is the most spiritual color, and I don't know, I think I do believe that. I think blue, there's like this depth to it, and so I think it made a lot of sense for me to kind of explore it further. And so since then, with my show at Latitude, it's just kind of, the remnants of the blue are still here. I'm beginning to kind of incorporate like purples and greens and yellows, but blue is definitely still like lingering. So, for me, the figure is almost acting as like an avatar, where, I personally find myself relating to the figures that I'm painting, and I think that's also my hope for my audience, is that, like whoever you are, whatever body you inhabit, that like you can inhabit the bodies in these paintings. So for me, I think, that's something that I really love about abstraction and stylization when it comes to figuration, because for me, I use that as a tool to kind of push the figures into more of this, I guess, ambiguous person. So, yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Definitely.
But yeah, I see it as like a person who might embody kind of all of humanity. Well, I feel like, I guess did you watch The Boy and the Heron?
Yes.
So I watched that also recently, and I mean, I've always been a huge Hayao Miyazaki fan. And those movies have also been like a part of my childhood, and like they've always been like had a special moment in my life, and so I would say he's a pretty big influence. Like, you know, the animation's beautiful, and also just how he chooses to, I guess, like portray his worlds are really inspiring.
Yeah.
The Heron was like beautiful and terrifying and kind of grotesque at the same time through all like the weird transformations. I think thinking about transformation, I think that's something that I kind of want to bring more into my work, is like, and that, like, thinking about how things can change into other things and the possibilities, and how that might like create some sort of dreamlike quality, because that's something that I love about his movies, is like the dreamlike quality that they have. I mean, I think something that is unseen, like, I mean, I'm always drawing from, you know, kind of like a very personal place. And, you know, those stories are really important for me, and they're really important for the work to like come into existence. You know, every piece is like tied to me in a pretty personal way. But once it becomes a painting, you know, it's not necessarily that important for the viewer's experience.
Yeah.
I think that's why, I mean, I think we all love stories, and I love to tell my own stories, like within like maybe this kind of setting, like a studio visit or something where it's a lot more personal. But I would say when it comes to, like Instagram or, you know, galleries or having openings, like that's not necessarily like put in people's faces.
Yeah.
I feel like I would like to say a distinct thing is kind of the glow, or like kind of how I'd like to think about light. But I think that also, you know, there are so many artists, and there's like, I truly do believe that there's like nothing new under the sun, where, you know, I'm finding artists all the time that I share a lot of, I guess, ways of working with them, where I'm like, wow, that person's work looks very similar to mine. And for me, I think that's something I find more exciting versus like, oh, like, I need to like change or do something that's more different. So I guess thinking about that question again, I don't necessarily think there's something like incredibly distinct that like separates my work from other artists. I mean, I think the only thing that I can think about as distinct is, again, kind of going back to the last question, where, you know, I'm drawing from a personal like narrative and personal experiences, which are only unique to me. And I think that's like a safe space for, at least for me as an artist, to kind of like rest in, to be like, you know, there's a lot of people painting swans out there, but like there's a very specific reason why I painted these swans.